The Mediterranean dawn painted Deck 9 of the Queen Celeste in hues of gold and crimson. Bianca Caldwell Porter stood alone at the railing, her silk robe fluttering in the sea breeze, eyes fixed on the endless horizon. Below, a commotion was brewing. 3 crew members huddled around a lifeboat canopy, pointing at the dark red stains that hadn't been there the evening before. A steward whispered into his radio, his face ashen. The metallic scent of blood carried on the morning air as passengers began to gather, murmuring about the hollow thud they'd heard in the night, a sound that would haunt their memories long after the cruise ended. And the groom, charismatic fitness mogul Kareem Porter, was nowhere to be found. How thin is the line between tragic accident and perfect murder? What happens when a dream honeymoon becomes a nightmare of suspicion? And how well do we really know the person sleeping beside us? Welcome to Guilty Whispers, where we uncover the darkest truths hiding behind ordinary lives. Tonight's story explores how quickly wedding vows can turn to funeral prayers when a newlywed vanishes from a luxury cruise ship, leaving behind nothing but questions, and a wife with no memory of what happened. When Bianca was found that morning, she appeared genuinely confused and distraught. She claimed to have taken a sleeping pill and remembered nothing. But the ship's surveillance cameras and mysterious text messages would soon tell a very different story, one of a woman very much awake, alert, and moving with purpose during those critical hours when her husband disappeared. What would you do if the person you trusted most became your primary suspect? Would you believe their story or follow the evidence when everything you thought you knew begins to unravel? If you were on that ship, what signs might you have noticed in the days leading up to that fateful night? This case reveals how justice on international waters falls through cracks that few ever see, and how the perfect crime might not be the one that goes unsolved, but the one that's never properly investigated at all. And before tonight's story ends, you'll discover how a single insurance policy modification might have been the first domino in a deadly chain reaction. Some believe Kareem fell. Others think he was pushed. But only one person knows the truth, and she's been quiet ever since. Before we continue with this story, take a moment to subscribe to Guilty Whispers and join our community of truth seekers. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Leave a like on this video, and drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. We have a lot to uncover in tonight's video, so stay tuned. Kareem Porter was the embodiment of success in Atlanta's fitness community. At 34, he owned 3 thriving gyms across the metropolitan area, with a combined value of approximately $1.2 million. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in East Atlanta, he'd worked multiple jobs to put himself through business school before opening his first gym at 25. His success wasn't just financial. Porter Fitness became known for its community programs, mentoring young athletes, and scholarship opportunities for underprivileged teens. Those who knew Kareem described him as magnetic, a natural leader who commanded attention when he entered a room. His sister Sierra would later play a recording of his laugh for investigators, a deep, genuine sound that made everyone around him smile. "That laugh," she would say, her voice breaking, "that's what I keep hearing when I close my eyes at night." But behind his success, Kareem had a weakness for believing in people's potential, sometimes against all evidence. This optimism had nearly cost him everything once before in a painful 4-year relationship with a financially controlling partner. When they finally split 18 months before meeting Bianca, Kareem had told close friends he was taking a break from dating to focus on business expansion. That changed the day he met Dr. Bianca Caldwell at a wellness retreat in Sedona, Arizona. Dr. Bianca Caldwell was a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma therapy with a private practice in Atlanta's affluent Buckhead neighborhood. Her impressive credentials, a doctorate from Emory and specialized training in dissociative disorders, helped her build a clientele of high-profile executives, professional athletes, and people involved in high-stakes legal battles. As an expert witness in several trials, she had developed extensive understanding of how psychological claims impact legal proceedings, and more importantly, how to present as a credible victim. She had this way of making you feel completely understood while revealing virtually nothing about herself, one former colleague observed. It was a remarkable skill professionally, but in hindsight, perhaps a warning sign personally. Unlike Kareem's large, close-knit family, Bianca had no apparent personal connections. She vaguely mentioned deceased parents in Philadelphia, but no siblings or extended family attended their wedding. Her apartment contained no childhood photos or mementos. It was as if she appeared fully formed at age 25, one former colleague remarked. Everything before that was a carefully constructed blank. Could you spot someone with a fabricated past? Would you notice the absence of personal history if it was skillfully concealed behind professional accomplishments? Their courtship was swift and intense. Within 6 months of meeting at the wellness retreat, Kareem proposed during a weekend trip to Savannah. Friends were surprised by the speed of the relationship and how quickly Bianca integrated herself into his business affairs, offering psychological insights for his expanding wellness programs. They seemed perfect on paper, Sierra would later say. The fitness entrepreneur and the psychologist, both successful, both attractive. But something always felt calculated to me. Sierra would later discover a small journal in Kareem's desk drawer. Inside, he'd written, "B says I rush into things. Maybe she's right. But when something feels this right, why wait?" The entry was dated just 2 weeks before their engagement, a haunting glimpse into his unshakable optimism. Their financial arrangement reflected their professional success and Kareem's previous relationship troubles. A prenuptial agreement protected his business assets, while they maintained separate accounts alongside one joint investment account for their planned wellness center. They took out substantial life insurance policies on each other, $750,000 each, which their financial advisor assured was standard for couples of their net worth. What wasn't standard was the additional maritime accident clause Bianca had requested be added to Kareem's policy just weeks before their cruise, a seemingly minor paperwork change that would later take on sinister implications. Their wedding in Charleston was a lavish affair covered by several fitness and lifestyle blogs. 200 guests watched them exchange vows, followed by a reception at an exclusive waterfront venue. Kareem's large extended family filled several tables, while Bianca's side was notably sparse, just a few colleagues and what she described as old friends from university. Their honeymoon plans, a 2-week Mediterranean cruise aboard the luxury liner the Queen Celeste, were well documented on Kareem's social accounts. Mediterranean magic for 2 weeks with my queen. #honeymoon countdown was his last post before boarding. Among the many congratulatory comments was one from Devin Wallace. "Enjoy every moment, brother. Life is short. Make it count." Those words would soon take on an ominous double meaning. Devin and Trey Wallace were struggling fitness entrepreneurs whose supplement company, Apex Nutrition, was facing bankruptcy despite years of effort. Devin, 36, had pharmaceutical knowledge from his abandoned pre-med studies, while his younger brother Trey, 30, served as the charismatic face of their brand. By the time of Kareem's wedding, they were 3 months behind on office rent and had received final eviction notices from their production facility. Their last hope was convincing Kareem to invest in their company, a prospect that looked increasingly unlikely. "Kareem's always business first on land," Devin had told a colleague before the trip. "Maybe with some Mediterranean sun and a few drinks, he'll finally see what he's missing." Unknown to Kareem, Trey Wallace had developed an infatuation with Bianca after meeting her at an industry event. Digital forensics would later reveal frequent communications between them in the weeks before the cruise. In one message, Trey had written, "I'd do anything to help my brother save this business." Anything. Bianca's response was simple but would later seem calculated. "Sometimes the right opportunity comes along when you least expect it." Completing this circle was Kimora Jenkins, a travel influencer with 500,000 followers who knew the Wallace brothers from a previous partnership. She posted a photo of the 4 of them at the captain's welcome dinner with champagne glasses raised. "They're gorgeous, successful, and just married. Talk about #couple goals," she captioned it. In the background, barely noticeable, was Trey Wallace, his eyes fixed not on the camera but on Bianca, a moment frozen in time showing all the players in position just days before disaster struck. The first 2 days of the cruise established patterns that would later become critical. Kareem was sociable, making friends and exploring ports enthusiastically. Bianca was reserved, preferring to read on their private balcony or visit the spa. In the evenings, they would dine together before Kareem often continued to the casino while Bianca retired early. By the third day, these different preferences had begun to create tension. Surveillance footage showed them in a heated discussion on the promenade deck, Bianca gesturing toward his drink, Kareem shaking his head dismissively. They walked away in opposite directions, Kareem toward the casino where Devon and Trey were waiting, Bianca toward their suite on Deck 9. No one could have predicted that within 14 hours, Kareem Porter would be gone forever, and the perfect honeymoon would become the perfect crime. The third day marked a critical turning point. While docked in Santorini, Kareem and Bianca took separate tours before reuniting for a late lunch at a cliffside restaurant. Passengers noticed them in what appeared to be a serious conversation. One passenger seated nearby overheard fragments, "We need to talk about." And "This isn't what I expected." The conversation ended abruptly when Kareem noticed people watching, and they returned to the ship separately. Later that afternoon, Kareem met privately with the Wallace brothers in the ship's business center to review their business proposal. A crew member who served them coffee reported that after 90 minutes, Trey stormed out while Devon and Kareem shook hands tensely. What happened in that meeting set events in motion. Kareem had decided not to invest in their supplement line. According to a draft email found later on his laptop, he had concerns about their testing protocols and marketing claims. "I value our friendship, but I can't put my reputation behind products without proper clinical validation. The financials you've shared show deeper problems than just cash flow. I'd be throwing good money after bad." It was a death sentence for Apex Nutrition, and possibly the trigger for what would become a death sentence for Kareem himself. That evening, Trey's frustration was noticed by multiple passengers. At the bar, he was overheard saying to Devon, "2 years wasted on that arrogant," before being cut off. A bartender later recalled Devon ordering water for himself but repeatedly buying double shots for Kareem and Trey. The older one seemed to be encouraging the others to drink while staying sober himself, he told investigators. "I've been tending bar for 12 years. I know when someone's trying to get others intoxicated." The night of Kareem's disappearance began at 10 p.m. in the ship's Grand Casino. Security cameras captured Kareem greeting the Wallace brothers at a blackjack table. Devon signed for drinks while appearing to consume very little himself. At 11:15 p.m., Bianca briefly appeared in the casino. Dressed in white linen pants and a black silk top, she observed from a distance before approaching. Nearby passengers overheard fragments about promises and opportunities. After a tense exchange with Kareem, she left alone. One passenger later described, "She whispered something in his ear, and his face changed completely. He looked confused, maybe even worried. She just smiled and walked away." At 11:45 p.m., ship records show Bianca sent a text message to Kareem, "Taking a sleeping pill. Please don't wake me when you come in." This message would later become crucial evidence establishing her claim of being asleep during the critical hours. Yet at 12:30 a.m., surveillance cameras captured Bianca leaving their cabin wearing dark pants and a hoodie, moving purposefully toward the upper deck lounge, directly contradicting her claim of being medicated and asleep. Meanwhile, Kareem was losing heavily at the roulette table. By 1:20 a.m., he was visibly intoxicated while Devon remained surprisingly sober. At 2:15 a.m., a cocktail server overheard Devon tell Trey, "Just stick to the plan." Another hour. By 2:45 a.m., Kareem was struggling to place chips and slurring his words when Trey suggested getting some air on Deck 9, the same deck as Kareem's suite. Security footage showed the three men leaving together, with Kareem leaning heavily on Devon. A security camera captured their exchange, "Devon, don't worry. You just need some fresh air." Kareem, slurring, "Something's wrong, doesn't feel right." Trey, trust us, man. We've got you. At 3:05 a.m., Bianca's key card was used to enter their cabin briefly. 14 minutes later, Kareem's key card was also used, though camera footage never showed him reaching the room, suggesting someone else had his card. At 3:38 a.m., cameras captured Bianca walking to the starboard lounge on deck 8, appearing slightly disoriented but not fully incapacitated as she would later claim. The final verified sighting of Kareem came at 3:50 a.m., when security cameras showed him with Devon and Trey on deck 9 near the lifeboats. The footage quality was poor due to low lighting, but Kareem appeared to be arguing with Trey while Devon stood watching. This was the last time Kareem Porter was seen alive. At 4:12 a.m., multiple passengers reported hearing a loud thud. One couple staying near the Porters told security they had heard an argument approximately 40 minutes earlier, with a man saying, "What did you give me?" followed by, "I can't." Perhaps the most damning testimony came from night steward Miguel Reyes, who saw a woman matching Bianca's description near the scene around 4:20 a.m. According to his statement, she was whispering, "Don't touch him," to someone he couldn't see before quickly walking away when she noticed his presence. Throughout this timeline, Bianca maintained she had been unconscious from sleeping medication. She claimed to have sleepwalked to the starboard lounge where she was found at 6:15 a.m. with an unexplained bruise on her arm. "I took my pill and went to bed," she told ship security. "I have no memory of anything until they woke me up in that lounge." Where's Kareem? Has something happened to Kareem? Her voice breaking, her eyes wide with concern, she appeared to be the picture of a worried wife. But was her performance too perfect? That morning, blood stains were found on a lifeboat canopy directly beneath where Kareem was last seen. Meanwhile, the Wallace brothers were conspicuously absent, not responding to calls to their cabin until nearly noon, almost 6 hours after Kareem was reported missing. What do you think happened during those critical hours between 3:50 a.m. and dawn? Did Kareem simply fall overboard after drinking too much? Or was this the culmination of a carefully orchestrated plan? Leave your theories in the comments below, and let's continue unraveling this twisted tale of deception at sea. The investigation into Kareem's disappearance was compromised from the start by jurisdictional complexities. The Queen Celeste was registered in Panama, sailing in international waters between Greece and Turkey. This created immediate confusion about which authorities had jurisdiction, Panamanian as the flag state, Greek or Turkish as the nearest coastal states, or American, as the victim was a U.S. citizen. The initial investigation fell to the ship's security team, led by former police officer Miguel Sanchez. As maritime investigator Sonia Bledsoe would later explain, cruise companies have two primary concerns when an incident occurs: maintaining passenger comfort and protecting their public image. Thorough criminal investigation is, unfortunately, a distant third. This reality became evident in how evidence was handled. Despite the blood found on the lifeboat canopy, the area was cleaned within hours, standard procedure to avoid alarming other passengers. Kareem and Bianca's suite received only a cursory examination before being cleaned for the next port's passengers. Most suspicious was the malfunction, reported specifically in the security cameras covering the section of Deck 9 where Kareem was last seen. While footage existed showing him approaching the area at 3:50 a.m., the crucial minutes after that were lost due to what the cruise line called a routine system reset. "It's beyond coincidence," noted one former FBI agent consulted by the family. Of all the cameras on a ship with hundreds, the one covering the exact location and time of a suspicious death happens to malfunction? The probability is astronomical. Physical evidence in the cabin told its own story: a chair knocked over near the balcony door, a broken wine glass on the floor, and Kareem's wedding ring found on the casino floor, not on his person. Most telling was his phone, which vanished entirely despite an extensive search. The ship's doctor found not only high alcohol levels in a glass from their cabin but also traces of zolpidem, a prescription sleep medication. This combination causes extreme disorientation and impaired judgment within 30 minutes of consumption. When questioned, Bianca confirmed the zolpidem was her prescription but insisted she had taken her pill with water in the bathroom, not with alcohol. Her behavior during interviews struck many as unusual, alternating between calm, clinical detachment and emotional outbursts that crew members described as performative. Kareem sometimes had adverse reactions to alcohol, she told security, suggesting an accident rather than foul play. However, none of Kareem's friends or family had ever observed such reactions during his regular social drinking at business events. The Wallace brothers presented their own inconsistencies. Initially claiming they'd escorted Kareem to his cabin around 3 a.m., they changed their story when confronted with surveillance footage showing them on Deck 9 at 3:50 a.m. Trey's alibi for the critical time around 4 a.m. was directly contradicted by another passenger's photo showing him on deck at 4:05 a.m., looking tense and scanning the area. Devon's pharmaceutical knowledge suddenly became relevant. The specific combination found in the glass would create symptoms of extreme disorientation that would appear as mere drunkenness to observers. Later that day, Kimora Jenkins overheard Devon warning his brother, "Don't say anything, no matter what. You know what's at stake." When she approached security with this information, Devon had already warned her directly, "A gentleman went overboard. It's very sad. But it's best not to spread rumors or speculate about what happened. For everyone's sake." Despite these red flags, the ship's captain announced by afternoon, "A passenger incident occurred last night. We have followed all maritime search protocols, but regrettably, we must now focus on supporting the family during this difficult time." Bianca was provided with grief counseling and arrangements were made for her early departure at the next port. Before leaving, she made one unusual request, retrieving her laptop from the ship's safe herself, checking its contents carefully before placing it in her carry-on bag. The rushed handling of Kareem's disappearance might have remained another cruise line statistic, one of nearly 200 people who have vanished from cruise ships since 2000, many with minimal investigation. But Kareem's sister Sierra was unwilling to accept the vague explanation surrounding her brother's death. "They think because it happened in international waters, no one will ask questions," she told reporters. "They're wrong." Unlike Bianca, who quickly accepted the tragic accident, framing and returned to Atlanta, Sierra remained in Athens, demanding answers from every authority she could reach. "I stood in the Greek police station for 6 hours, she later recalled, tears streaming down her face. "They kept saying it wasn't their jurisdiction. No one wanted to take responsibility for finding out what happened to my brother." Her persistence led her to Sonia Bledsoe, a former maritime law enforcement officer who specialized in cruise ship incidents. When Sierra first walked into Bledsoe's office, she carried a small zippered bag containing her brother's few returned belongings. As she placed Kareem's wedding ring on the desk, her hand trembled. "He wouldn't have taken this off willingly," she whispered. "Not after everything he said in his vows." "It's the perfect murder location," Bledsoe said, pointing to a map on her wall with red pins marking disappearances at sea. "International waters create a gap in justice that most people don't know exists until they're caught in it." The first red flag emerged when Sierra obtained copies of her brother's financial records. 6 weeks before the cruise, Kareem's life insurance policy had been modified with a specific maritime accident clause, an unusual addition that would ensure payment even without a recovered body. This modification had been requested by Bianca, not Kareem. Insurance investigators look for 3 things: means, opportunity, and motive, Bledsoe explained. "The $750,000 policy gives us a clear motive. The cruise ship provided the perfect opportunity. The means, that's what we need to establish." 2 months into the investigation, a breakthrough came when a data recovery specialist recovered deleted text messages from Kareem's cloud backup. Among them was a message from an unknown number the night before his disappearance: "He's going to black out soon. Make sure it looks messy." The number traced to a prepaid phone purchased in Atlanta 3 days before the cruise, timing that aligned with the Wallace brothers' departure. More damning evidence emerged when Bledsoe discovered financial connections between Bianca and Trey Wallace predating her relationship with Kareem. Small transfers, consulting fees ostensibly for wellness program development, had been paid from her practice account to Trey over the 6 months before she met Kareem, stopping immediately after they began dating. She knew them before, Sierra said, her voice breaking. She was working with them before she even met my brother. 6 months after Kareem's disappearance, Kimora Jenkins finally contacted Sierra directly. On her phone was video footage from the ship's nighttime entertainment showing Bianca and Trey in an intense conversation at 1:15 a.m., when Bianca should have been asleep in her cabin. More significantly, Kimora revealed what she witnessed after Kareem went missing. Around 4:30 a.m., I couldn't sleep and went to get some air. I saw Trey near the railing where Kareem was last seen. He looked scared. Then I saw Bianca coming from the stairwell. She wasn't confused or sleepy like she claimed later. She was alert, focused. I watched her wipe something off her hands with a towel, then she looked straight at me. That's why I didn't say anything at first. I was terrified. While the investigation progressed, Bianca moved quickly to collect on Kareem's insurance policy. The company initially placed the claim under review, but without evidence of foul play and with the cruise company's report classifying the incident as an apparent accidental fall, they ultimately approved the payment. What investigators didn't know was that months before the cruise, Bianca had established a shell company in the Cayman Islands under her maiden name. Within days of receiving the insurance payout, the funds were transferred through a series of accounts to this offshore entity. 2 weeks after receiving the money, Bianca filed for legal name change, citing fears of a stalker, leveraging her professional knowledge of victim services systems. Within months, she had secured residency in Turks and Caicos under her new identity, Yasmin Caldwell. The Wallace brothers similarly vanished. They closed their Atlanta apartment, dissolved Apex Nutrition, and cut contact with former associates. 8 months after Kareem's death, a new supplement company launched in San Diego, Peak Performance Nutrition, with identical formulations but different branding. The business registration listed different names, but the website showed Devin and Trey with new hairstyles and using different names. The most damning evidence came from Bledsoe's digital forensics team. They recovered a deleted email from Bianca's abandoned cloud storage sent 2 weeks before the cruise. Once everything is resolved as discussed, you'll have the full funding package we talked about. New brand, new start. Just make sure there are no loose ends. Despite this evidence, criminal prosecution remained elusive. Without a body and with compromised physical evidence, prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions declined to pursue charges. 18 months after Kareem's disappearance, Yasmin Caldwell opened an exclusive wellness retreat in Turks and Caicos, catering to wealthy clients seeking personal transformation. Social media showed a tanned, relaxed Bianca leading meditation sessions on pristine beaches, her appearance subtly altered with lighter hair and weight loss. Sierra scrolled through the retreat's Instagram page, stopping on a photo of Bianca wearing a necklace she recognized, a wedding gift from Kareem. She's wearing his gift, Sierra whispered, while building a new life with the money from his death. Meanwhile, Sierra established a foundation in her brother's name, providing fitness opportunities for disadvantaged youth. She also became an advocate for improved security on cruise ships, testifying before congressional committees examining maritime safety laws. "My brother didn't just die," she often said. "He was erased, by a system designed to prioritize corporate interests over justice, and by a woman who saw him as nothing more than a stepping stone to the life she wanted." The disappearance of Kareem Porter left behind more questions than answers. The evidence points to a conspiracy more elaborate than anyone initially suspected: the methodical timing of insurance modifications, the strategic positioning of all players, and the carefully constructed alibis suggesting a level of premeditation rarely seen outside of fiction. Detective Sonia Bledsoe, after 2 years investigating the case, offered this assessment: this wasn't carelessness. It was methodical. Whether she did it herself or used someone else as the instrument, Bianca walked off that ship freer than she'd ever been. She didn't just take Kareem's life, she used his death to fund the existence she'd always wanted. The most compelling evidence came in the final revelation. 18 months after Kareem's death, Detective Bledsoe discovered deleted emails showing Bianca had explicitly promised the Wallace brothers funding after Kareem's death. Within weeks of the insurance payout, offshore transfers matching the promised amount were made to accounts connected to their new California business. 3 weeks after this discovery, Bledsoe received an unmarked envelope at her office containing a single photograph: Bianca, Devon, and Trey together on a yacht, champagne glasses raised in celebration. The image was dated 2 months after Kareem's death. On the back, handwritten in blue ink, "Some secrets should stay at sea." How many people does it take to commit the perfect murder? One to plan it, one to do it, and one to keep the secret. In this case, all 3 roles were played by different individuals, orchestrated by a single calculating mind. On the open ocean, truth can sink fast. But secrets? Secrets always float. They rise to the surface when the pressure becomes too great, as Kimura's eventual testimony proved. Yet justice remains elusive. The jurisdictional barriers, compromised evidence, and carefully constructed plausible deniability created a perfect storm of impunity. Kareem Porter's story serves as a chilling reminder of how vulnerable we are when institutions prioritize commerce over justice, when relationships are built on calculation rather than connection, and when someone with intimate knowledge of human psychology uses that understanding not to heal but to harm. The truth behind closed doors can only come to light when we have the courage to share it. If this story moved you, help others discover it by sharing this video. Leave a like so others can see this story and gain awareness. And don't forget to subscribe to Guilty Whispers. Together, we can ensure that stories like Kareem's are never forgotten and that justice finds its voice. For those who seek the truth about what happened on the Queen Celeste that night, perhaps the most telling evidence lies not in what was found, but in what remains missing: Kareem's phone, never recovered, the security footage that conveniently malfunctioned, and the conscience of a woman who now leads meditation retreats on the beaches of Turks and Caicos, helping others leave their old lives behind, exactly as she did herself, at the expense of a man who thought he had found lasting love. Just last month, a former client of Yasmin's wellness retreat posted a review online: "Life-changing experience. Yasmin has this incredible ability to help you reinvent yourself completely. As she told us during our final session, the past doesn't define you. You can become anyone you want to be." I believe her, she speaks from experience. If only Kareem Porter had recognized that philosophy before it was too late.